Attention on deck. Welcome to the Warships Podcast with your hosts, Kelord, Kami Samurai, and Vanacera.
Hello and welcome to episode 34 of the Warships Podcast. Today we have Clyde the Monkey on the show as our guest. Welcome to the show, Clyde.
Hello, good to be here.
So, Clyde, you're from Norway, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Awesome. So, with the history of Tirpitz and the other ships taking place in and around Norway, you know, the sinking of the Glorious and things like that, is World of Warships very popular in Norway?
Among my friends, it's not that popular. I think I have like 2 or 3 friends maybe who plays the game, but not to my knowledge at least. Like I only have like 2 or 3 friends that I play with occasionally. So actually, I haven't checked out the community in Norway, how many plays it or not. Yeah.
Is there a sense of that you guys kind of remember that history, or is that kind of passed by the wayside? The Tirpitz and the Gneisenau and the Scharnhorst and things like that.
Nah, that's past history. Like, my granddad was very interested in stuff like that, and naval vessels from both, like, the Allied and the Axis powers, so, yeah. No hard feelings anymore. So, there's a lot of interest about the Tirpitz and the Scharnhorst, and the naval wars that went on in the Atlantic Ocean in between the Brits and us.
Have you ever had the inclination to go up to where the Tirpitz sank, or no?
There's not much left to see, though. That's the thing. And for us, like, the Tirpitz was chopped up to pieces, and we still use pieces to cover up holes in the road in Norway while we're doing road work, so there's not much for me to go up there and see. I don't know. I have seen a chunk of steel from it many times here in Bergen, so...
It's kind of cool. I watched a special on it, and some of the anti-aircraft emplacements are still there. The concrete and stuff that you can kind of go see. But yeah, interesting stuff. But so how did you get into Twitch streaming? And was it with World of Warships, or did you get into streaming before you started playing?
Oh, way before Warships. It was when Shadowplay from NVIDIA got released, and I wanted to test out the future, so I played some Farming Simulator 2013. And it all started there.
How many people watched you do that?
Oh, I can't remember. I stopped playing it after like a month or 2 before I moved on to other games and played like simulators like Euro Truck and Flight Sims and so on. And then when Close Beta from Warships arrived, I got a key from, was it Geek Domo, I think it was. So I started out on NA actually, on CBT. Yeah.
So when you started out on the closed beta, what were your impressions of the game at that point, and how do you feel that it's progressed from then until now?
Oh, I was very below average player back then. So, but I still had a lot of fun doing the whole DD thing where you hunted down the CV instead of helping out the team and so on, and played a lot of St. Louis games because it had a lot of guns. So good times. That was me and back in CBT at least.
Fair enough. So do you consider yourself to be kind of a specialist in any kind of specific ships or ship types or anything like that?
No, I play most classes. Well, CV is something I still struggle with because of the multitasking and so on, but I have the same amount of battles in both cruisers and battleships, and very close on DDs as well, so I feel like I'm a very much balanced player. Yeah.
Fair enough. Did you end up playing in the last rank season or not so much?
Oh, this last ranked season I actually went for rank 1, but I had a bad season to begin with. Was very sick in the 2 first weeks. I just struggled through the Tier 7, which was filled with Belfast and so on. This season was the first one I went full DD until the last, was it 3-1 before I switched over to Scharnhorst? I think, yeah. So this season was the first one I got to rank 1. The other season, I just didn't have the time for it, and I enjoyed playing with others more than playing ranked. So, yeah.
Hey, Clyde.
Hey.
What's your favorite ship in the game?
Oh, I'm in between 3 here. Either Congo, Montana, or Mutsu, actually. I really love the Mutsu. That's a Tier 6, at least.
Well,
and surprisingly...
I can get with you. I can get with you on the Mutsu. The Congo, yeah, I can see that too. But the Montana?
Yeah. I like the Blap cruisers. I like to not overpan everything like the Yamato does. And the Curfirst is for me too easy to play. I like a challenge at least. It's so much satisfying when you're getting that good game in a Montana than in a Curfirst where you all rush into a cap and, oh, I've done 150k damage. What happened? So, I don't know. I just have more fun games in Montana, basically. It's a fast shape. It has good guns to shoot cruisers and every class in the game with. Very good AA. It's just an overall good ship, balanced ship.
It's interesting because I've been doing some research and pulling some stuff together to help people understand the Yamato and how to play her, what her weaknesses are, and what the chinks in her armor are if you're playing against another Yamato that aren't there if you're playing against a Curfirst or Montana. So it's interesting. That part of the game kind of is interesting to me. To the kind of the meta part of, well, if you're doing that, then I do this. And I always feel like in a Yamato, if I don't have to fear anything from a Montana unless I make a mistake.
Yeah, that is true. I think I have most battles in Yamato compared to Montana, like almost 100 battles a difference, but it's something with the Montana, I don't know what it is, but I just have much more fun in it. While the Yamato is, in the current meta, it's the meta that's wrong at the moment, where everybody sits in the back and so on and so on.
Fair enough. Kami, did you have any other questions?
How did you get your name?
Oh God, how'd it come? I got my name when I had when I played Counter-Strike, I didn't use this name. Well, back in 1.6, that is. But I got a PlayStation 2 internet adapter. So I had to come up with a name on the PlayStation Network. And we just watched the movie Shaun of the Dead. And there's a little bit there with Clyde the Monk. I don't know, I was drunk, so I found that funny. So yeah, I'm going to type in that. And since then, I've been stuck with it. I've tried to change it, but I had to change it back because, yeah, something you get stuck with, basically.
I understand that. I've had this name for a long time as well, so I can see that. You think about changing your name or doing something different, you're like, I'll just keep the same name.
Yeah. But people keep referring to the Clint Eastwood movie. I can't remember the name of it. But I've never watched that movie, actually. And people keep referring to that one when they see my name. No, it's not that movie it's from. Come on.
That's funny.
Now,
now, how far back in Counter-Strike do you go, Clyde? Because I played in the Counter-Strike betas back when the M4 had the scope on it. That was when I started playing.
Oh, I can't remember before 1.6. Like, I played on the. Oh God, it's so long ago. Jesus, that's like 15 years ago at least. It was before 1.6 ended and Source came along.
Yeah, that's long time ago. We don't like to think about how long ago that was.
No. Let's not talk
aging
about
yourself.
Oh God.
Yeah,
I feel the wrinkles creeping up on me here.
Well, we're really glad to have you on the show, and we hope that you have fun discussing stuff with us today. So,
I have one more question.
Oh, go for it,
Clyde.
Yeah.
Do you like Steven Seagal movies?
No.
That's it. Interview's over.
Kick him off the show.
That's it. He's out of here.
If anyone has a one fight to remove that voice, that would be great. Thank you.
So, with patch 0.6.4 on the horizon, and possibly dropping as soon as next week, based on kind of the 3-week patch cycle that Wargaming uses, we wanted to discuss some of the features that are coming up. So first up, there are quite a few balance changes coming, with Grozovai and New Orleans getting buffs to detection range, the turret diverse for various IGN ships, mostly destroyers, but including Megami getting a nice buff. And finally, the Koenig and the Khabarovsk getting slight nerfs, with the Koenig Sigma being decreased from 2 to 1.8, and the Cab's rudder shift increasing from 11.1 to 6.1. So, Clyde, you're first up on the show here. What are your thoughts about these changes, the balance changes coming with patch 0.6.4?
Well, I played Mogami a lot back in the days, with the 155 setup and AFT and everything, and it's nice to see that the 155 is going to return. It was one of my favorite cruises, and what actually learned me how to play a cruiser, because Tier 8 battleships, Tier 8 cruisers, not a good mix. So you really learned at Tier 8 how to use your cruiser properly. And then you have New Orleans. I've never liked New Orleans, but it really needs that detection buff. It really helped the Pepsi Cola, which I actually like. So that's something it really needs. Detection buff. Maybe some armor buff as well.
Unlikely to get the armor buff. I actually did boot up the PTS just so that I could play the 155 Mogami again. Oh, it feels so good. You constantly get stuck in tier 10 games on the PTS, I feel. But man, that thing just wrecks even at tier 10. It's ridiculous.
It's really good against the DDs. It's really good.
Vanessa, did you boot up the PTS to play your favorite ship ever?
She doesn't need the PTS to play the Scharnhorst.
Oh, that's really funny. No, I have booted up the PTS, and I've really been enjoying the dry dock port. No, I booted up to check that out. I've been really testing the D'Aosta and the French cruisers. So, yes, I am very excited for the Tier 8 to make a return. But yeah, I will get it when the ship is in the real live port, ready to go.
I will say that a long time ago, when they nerfed it, I sold my Mogami, so I'm gonna have to rebuy it. Did any of you keep it? Did you keep? I assume you kept it, Vanessa.
Oh, I bought the premium camo as soon as it was available, even though I never sailed the ship anymore, because that's how much I played that ship. Like, you cannot sell the Mogami. That anyone who has played since, the alpha closed beta days, you cherish that ship because it was the best.
I sold it and never looked back.
Yeah,
are you going to rebuy it, Kami?
No. Tier 8 matchmaking sucks. All you see is tier 10s. Yeah. I mean, to be honest, I probably will. I mean, I have plenty of port slots, and I would like to see it again, but I never had the fascination with the Mogami that everyone else had. I liked battleships back then because you get to make Mogami.
It's funny. Once they nerfed it and the game was officially released, I was playing through the Mogami again, and man, did I make a hash of it. I to this day, I have like a 37% win rate in the Mogami because I played it a ton after they nerfed it. So, Clyde, are you going to buy it back or no?
Oh, yeah, I sold mine when I got my Atago. I tried like 2-3 matches after I got my Atago, but I just couldn't play with the 155s, and I didn't see the reason keeping the Mogami 2 or 3s when I had that Atago. So I just sold it, but I'm definitely going to buy it back with the 155s, that is. So, yeah, that's going to go back in my port.
Yeah, and the issue with the gun bloom being associated with the hull doesn't matter anymore because gun bloom is all changed, so... Who knew? So there are also a few quality of life changes coming with the Cyclone Vision range being added to the UI icon, which I think is a really cool change. Some appearance upgrades for Tier 10 ships, and then revisions to the Ring, New Dawn, Trap, Islands of Ice, Islands, and Trident maps, and a wicked awesome new dry dock port that we talked to the Wargaming EU folks about last week. I'm actually really curious to see what they're going to do with some of these maps, because a lot of these maps are maps we've had for a really long time, and Islands of Ice has already had a pretty big overhaul, so I was surprised to see that on the list again. Kami, what do you think that they're looking to do with some of these map changes?
Well, Islands of Ice, I find, plays very different than it used to. I think, teams typically either all go to C or they all go to A, and kind of B's left open. We actually played a match on Islands Ice the other day where we capped the enemy team out in like 5 minutes and 20 seconds. Myself and I think it was Slap just, drove right across the middle of the map and went straight onto their cap and capped them. So I don't know what they're going to do to change the map, but they need to do something to maybe eliminate the big mountains, the big islands in the north of B, and maybe that'll help to have a little bit more action, because I see a lot of teams just go up to A and they're just up there and they don't do anything. But I don't know. I preferably like the original Islands of Ice, but I don't know. I guess Islands of Ice, version 4 will be in the works. But I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do.
Do you remember the Islands of Ice, the previous version of it, when it was in ranked battles?
Yes, I do.
Oh man, that was painful. It was so painful.
It was. I don't know when they do map changes. If they do big changes, all the time. But I do know when they do change maps, like when they did Islands Ice, I think they announced it, that they were changing it. But I don't know, maybe they're just moving some islands around, or I don't know.
I mean, the thing that stuck out to me is that they've got a lot of maps on this list. I mean, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's 6 or 7 maps. I mean, that's a lot of changes. I'm wondering if they're going to be relatively minor ones, since they're doing such a broad thing. And I guess the other thing I wanted to ask you about, and you too, Clyde, is what do you think about the Cyclone Vision being added to the UI? Because I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about how cyclones work in the community.
Yeah. With the cyclones, you never know when the cyclone is going to fully set in with the current GUI. So you need to prepare yourself for that cyclone as well if you're in a cruiser or DD, get into position at least. Because being surprised by a battleship at 6 kilometer range is not fun. So, yeah.
Fair enough. Kami, did you have any thoughts to add on the changes?
What are they exactly doing? Are they just putting a timer on when the cyclone comes in?
No. They already have the timer on. What they're doing is putting next to that, they're putting the vision range that you can see in the cyclone at that moment, so you can watch it go down. Oh,
okay, yeah, that would actually be pretty helpful because, when the cyclone kicks in, it feels like it takes forever. Like it feels like you're still spotted forever. So yeah, that'd be nice to see that your vision is slowly decreasing. So where to pay attention to, which ships are where if they're spotted. Yeah, that's a great addition. The one thing I wish they would change with the Cyclone though is making it so planes don't instantly appear at like 2 kilometers and there's nothing you can do.
Yeah, it does seem to give the CVs a pretty big advantage. That's for sure.
I mean, I can't count the times I've seen with a CV in the game and all of a sudden, oh, there's a Taiho strike package right next to me. Hang on, let me not have time to react to just get nuked. But
yeah, I don't even have time to put my head between my legs.
Yeah, they just show up and you're like, uh-oh. There's 12 Tort Bombers. But I do like that change. And like we've always said, Wargaming's done a great job of implementing good changes. I mean, of course, there are some that, people don't always agree with. But for the most part, Wargaming's done a good job of listening and implementing.
I guess what's surprising to me is that this is one of those things I would have expected somebody to make a mod to do. But nobody ever did, and yet Wargaming is kind of ahead of the curve on this one. So I think that's kind of cool too.
Yeah, that's a good point. Maybe people just were used to the Cyclone just kicking in whenever, but that's a good point. No one did make a mod for this, and Wargaming has done a great job of integrating mods that people have made into the game so that you don't have to look for an outside source. You can just go into your settings and turn them on, which I like.
Yeah, I mean, the ship names mod is one that I always used to download, but now I can just use it in the client, which is nice. It just gives me one less mod that I have to worry about messing up my game. That's for sure. So starting today, the Clash of Elements event is live, and it's going to be here for the next 3 weeks. Basically, you're supposed to choose your side, fire or water, and earn coins. The top prize is a special Kamikaze R with a neat camo for 800 coins, and it appears that you can earn up to about 300 coins per week without being in the top group. So you want to get started now, and especially if you don't have the Kamikaze R, because they've said that that's never going to be on sale again. So if you want a Kamikaze, this is your time to earn one. I think this is kind of a cool event for them to start. I like the idea of there being kind of opposite teams, and then you can kind of track your progress. The meter that you can see on the website is very cool, and it updates constantly. You can just sit there and watch it update after on a minute to minute basis. Clyde, what were your thoughts? I mean, this kind of came out of nowhere. Nobody was really expecting this. Is the EU community something that would embrace this kind of gameplay?
Oh yeah, Grand Naval Battles event, for example, was a big success. I joined this immediately on the fire side, obviously, because Russian DDs. Setting fire to a sniping battleship, that's my favorite thing. So first thing I did was join that chat and join the side I wanted to, and I'm gonna, it's gonna be a success, especially with the Kamiasa price, which is probably one of the best ships in the game still.
What's also kind of cool is that it's got a new special camo. So even if you already have a Kamikaze R, there's still something to go for to get. There's still that cool camo to kind of go for. Kami, what were your thoughts? I think that a lot of the OPG guys are going to join the fireside, except maybe Swagger. But what are your thoughts on it on any?
Yeah, the Kamikaze. All right, so the Kamikaze R. When I played my Fuso religiously, Kamikazes, Minakazes, and what's the other one? The Fujin. When I saw those ships, I just knew that they were terrors to deal with because you could never see them, and their torpedoes were fast. It's like, so now there's going to be even more of them in the seas. So it's going to become even more. Clyde, did you just say the Fuso is overrated in the chat?
No, I didn't.
Oh man, see, here we go. Now we're starting. But no, the
unbelievable.
I feel like it's a great event. These community events. I remember when the first Kamikaze R event happened. I mean, it was cool. There were a lot of people playing and trying and helping the what was it crystals or whatever
diamonds.
It was the diamonds or whatever for the.
It should have been pearls, I thought.
Oh yeah,
that's
you're right. It was
pearls.
Yeah, that's what it was. Pearls. There were a lot of people, collecting, helping collect the pearls. And I think this event's another way of getting the community involved. And these events tend to be very successful for wargaming. And I really wish they would do more of them. But I have the Kamikaze R, but I'm still going to do the event. And if you notice, there's like medals you can earn, like MVP achievements.
And you get extra coins and stuff for that kind of stuff. I just wasn't counting those in the minimum that you can kind of get to get to that thing. So, Vanessa, did you what are your thoughts on? Do you have a Kamikaze R? Are you gonna try and get one or?
Regretfully, I do not. When the event was out, my computer was kind of down. So I didn't really have a computer to play that or that ranked season, I remember. So I do have the Fujin and the Kamikaze, but not the Kamikaze R. So I'll probably do this event because it looks like it would be fun. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Vanessa, did you see that they also announced that they are going to have the high school fleet stuff that came off of the Asia server?
I did, and what I'm really kind of interested is I don't really know much about the show, but I do know that the destroyer that they feature actually has US 127 millimeter guns on it. So I'm kind of curious if they're going to actually do that or if it's just going to be modeled and still going to be the IJN guns. So really kind of curious how they're going to do that.
I'm kind of curious about it as well because that particular destroyer is not represented in the game in any shape or form. So that's a completely new ship. The Graf Spee we already have in the game. It's just going to be kind of like a special camo version. But it's cool that that one's going to be in there. Kami, did you have something derogatory to add to this discussion?
Negative. I had a question actually for the event for the Kamikaze R. Is it any tier or is it limited to specific tiers?
I don't see anything on here that says that it's limited to any tier. They say recommendations, for which one to go for. But it looks like to get the most to get all of your that you can earn up to 300 coins per week, and you get 5 per challenge stage. So I don't think that you have to do every single one of these challenge stages, to go through 12. But there's 12 stages for each type, which are ships sunk, battles won, total damage, ribbons and achievement, and base XP. So it looks like you'll be able to kind of pick and choose what you want to do. So.
Oh yeah, and it says progress made towards challenges only count in random battles in ships tier 5 and higher.
Well, there you go. Clyde, tier 5 and higher, guys, and participate. So, Clyde, what are you gonna? Is there one that you're gonna? Kami was talking about focusing on the win rate one, which we know he's a dirty, rotten podcast or streamer, or whatever.
Streamer buff, bro.
Streamer boy. Is there one that you're looking at that you would like to work?
I'm guessing gonna be win-loss ratio for me as well. It's all about that, that and XP.
It's all about the W, Clyde. I
Oh, yeah.
like that thinking.
Yeah.
No, but I think it's going to be an awesome event, and I think these events are exciting to do, and I think Wargaming, it's been a long time since they've had since the last event for the Kamikaze R, right? That they've had a big community event. So what was that? How long ago was that? Like 6 months?
I mean, yeah, that was almost a year, I think, because it was the beginning of last year when the year with the other fleets.
Yeah, it's been over a year. It was not last year, but I think.
So it does look like that the goals are pretty aggressive. To get 300 coins, you need to have 225 ships sunk per week, 125 battle wins per week, 10 million total damage per week, 25,000 ribbons and achievements per week, and 200,000 base XP per week. I mean, that's a lot. That's pretty high to be able to get all of those coins. I mean, getting to that Kamikaze, since you need 800 coins over 3 weeks, that's pretty aggressive.
Well, the battles won 125. I mean, that one's probably I would say is probably the easiest out of the 5 categories. And the ship sunk. I mean, if you average a ship, sunk per game, it's only going to take you 225 games. I know a lot of people don't have that amount of time. Us streamers have a little bit more time than others, but the 10 million total damage, that's a lot of damage. But if you play tier 10, you play the Yamato or the Curve first.
Yeah, the damage one I actually don't think is that bad because I know I can do that much damage in a week. It's you essentially need 266.6 coins per week. So you don't have to do absolutely everything, but you do have to do a heck of a lot to get a Kamikaze.
And these are live now, right? You can.
Yeah, absolutely. You can actually go and go to the website. And you can look at the chart, and you can see your progress on each one, and you can see your team's progress on each one, which is kind of cool. It's a very cool infographic.
Yeah, I like these events, and I'm glad that Wargaming's done another one. Did you just say Clyde? You and this Montana, man. First you bash on the Fuso, and now you're talking about the Montana. I don't know.
Man, he's trying to start a fight.
I don't know, man.
We're not United Airlines, Clyde. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, so let's get on to a bit about the French cruisers. So we as community contributors were able to preview all of the French ships last weekend, and I think all three of us, Kami, Vanessa, and I, spent a fair amount of time last weekend. I didn't even play my regular account. I only played the press account to test the French ships, and I kind of wanted to go ship by ship. We've done this in the past, but every time in the past we've just had stats to go on. Now we can actually give you a preview impression of what these lines are going to be like. So let's kind of start out and go one by one. So it's the tier 1, the Bougainville. I had a lot of trouble with this ship, and I really didn't like it. But I know, Kami, you were kind of telling me that it wasn't as bad as I thought it was.
No, I told you the ship is terrible. The Bougainville is. I honestly put it in the category of might be the worst ship in the game. I mean,
the only redeeming quality about the ship, about the tier 1, is the fact that it's got one of the highest accuracies in the game, and I was consistently able to land all 3 shells. But the problem is it only fires 3, and I just got wrecked by Black Swans. I think that Black Swan somebody needs to think about this, because the Black Swan is like the most overpowered thing in the game, in my opinion, tier for tier.
They can shoot AP.
Yep.
Yeah, and the tier 1 is so slow. It looks like a fishing boat. It's slow. It has 3 guns. I mean, it's just. If you guys want my expert advice, start the tier 2.
Free XP it? What?
I mean, the only good side is that literally you're going to play it once and then be done with it. I mean, really.
I don't know. You might only do 7 damage with how slow it is.
Vanessa, did you play the tier 1 or did you skip that one?
No, honestly, I started with tier 4 since that's kind of when the game, really starts to get exciting for me. So I did not.
Just wait.
I did not test tier 1, 2, or 3. I went to 4 and test all the ships up from there.
Wait.
You skipped one of the best ship in the line.
You skipped the Freon?
I started with tier 4.
Yeah, but Vanessa, you have to go back and play the Freon because it is it is ridiculous. It's absolutely insane. But we'll get to that in a minute. So the tier 2 is the Jurien de la Gravière, something like that. I took French in high school, but it's been a while, so bear with me.
30 years.
Not quite 30 years, Kami. Shut up. So she's a protected cruiser. She's got 8 guns, which you can bring 5 of them to bear on either broadside. I found her relatively comfortable to play at tier 2, Kami. I found her better than like the Chikuma and the Chester and stuff like that.
The Chester.
I realize that's a low bar, but you know, it was like you went from the most terrible ship ever at tier 1 to a tier 2 ship that was like, this isn't so bad.
Oh yeah, the Jurien's fine, and the guns actually hit pretty hard. I mean, they do decent damage. I mean, it's a tier 2. I mean, what more are you gonna expect out of it? You know, but I think the tier 2 is fine, and the tier 2 will be, you know, how many battles do you have to play in the tier 2 to get tier 3? Couple.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's like 3, 4 if you don't have a premium ship, a premium account. You know, maybe 2 if you do. It's pretty minimal, but I mean, that just sets you up for the tier 3. I mean, what I don't get is who thought it was a good idea to put a tier 3 a ship at tier 3 that's got super firing turrets fore and aft with 8 guns that can fire off both sides and give it 6 torpedoes and make it 30 knots. Like, who thought that was a good idea? Like, even with its reload rate nerfed to 12 seconds, you can still get BFT and Adrenaline Rush on that thing. So you're still looking at like a 10-second reload on the guns. It's a monster. I the first game out, I did 90,000 damage at tier 3, Kami. Like, I know you said you played it even before it was nerfed, right?
I did. I was previously a super tester, so I played it before. And that ship was, I don't know if it still is because I've been playing a lot of the 8, but was my favorite ship of the line. And, you know, I don't play a lot of low tiers. I've been playing a little bit of Nikolai because, you know, Nikolai's Nikolai, but that's a ship that I could play hours upon hours because it's so good for its tier. I mean, and if you get a tier 4 game, you don't even care. You know, it has range, it has like you said, it has torpedoes. I mean, and it's just all around a really good ship. And I have no idea where it came from, who thought it would be a good idea to put it in the game, like you said, but it is definitely a ship that's worth playing and keeping. And that's coming from me, who I can even tell you if I own any tier 3s, to be honest with you.
Kotori.
Oh yeah, I guess I do own the Kotori. That, again, a slow fishing boat.
Clyde, did you have thoughts on the Freon?
Well, it's going to be I don't know, it looks like a seal clubber. Good seal clubber. That's torps, doesn't it? No, wait.
It's got 6 torps on each side. 2 triple launchers on each side. And they're 6-kilometer torps. It's like, I went toe-to-toe with multiple St. Louis's and just wrecked them. Just completely wrecked them. It was ridiculous.
Yeah. That was what I really liked about the Tenry. You had a good torps. But the problem with cruises at that tier is the amount of battleships at that tier, which is insane. At least on EU, it's a lot of battleships out there.
Right, but even then, Clyde, you can they don't tend to jink around a lot, so you can get torps into their side relatively easy. And that thing sets fires like nobody's business. I burned the crap out of battleships in the Freon. Is that kind of how you did it, Kami?
Yeah, and you have great range for tier 3. I think it's 15.
And the rudder shift is okay-ish as well.
Yeah. I mean, it's an all-around ship that you would think you'd find, you know, at a mid-tier in the game, based on how the ship plays.
It could easily be tier 4 and be just fine. Like, not even kidding.
Yeah, and
it's 11.7 kilometer range, but you can get AFT.
Yep.
So, I mean, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, and I experienced setting a lot of fires in that ship. The fires, and the thing with, you know, low tier battleships, like you said, they don't tend to pay as much attention as mid to higher tier battleships. A lot of straight lining, a lot of, they rep one fire, and then you instantly get them on 2 fires, and they're burning for half their HP. And another thing to keep in mind, at that tier, a lot of people do not run premium consumables, so the fires last longer.
And they're not likely to have like the fire prevention skill, which mitigates the amount of fire damage you take and reduces the number of fires that you can have on your ship at any given time. So I mean, it's really pretty crazy. But I heard that before it got nerfed, Kami, it had a 70% win rate.
Holy shit!
I'm not. Yeah, I don't know those numbers, but honestly, the ship, I could see it. I'm surprised. To be honest with you, I'm surprised it wasn't higher.
So we have a new Tenryu then, basically.
You have a what?
The Tenryu, very good for its tier. The Tenryu, the Japanese one.
If you see a Tenryu in the Freon, that's food, because you just load your AP and you just wreck it.
Yeah, and that's another thing. The AP is very good. It's a ship that it's like, are you sure? To me, I'm like, are you sure this is a tier 3 ship? That's how I feel about it. And honestly, the Freon really sets you up for, I don't know how to say it, but I call it the Dougie. But the tier 4, it really sets you up sets you up really well for that one as well.
A really funny thing, and I actually, Pointy Haired Jedi reminded me about it in his video. You look at the Duguay and it has 155 millimeter guns. The Duguay is the reason that the Megami has 155s, because the French had just built the Duguay and they didn't want it to be classified as a heavy cruiser by the London Naval Treaty, which was defining heavy cruisers by gun size. And so the exception was made that it could go up to 155 millimeter guns, so the French could keep the Duguays and call them light cruisers. So that's why the Japanese built the Megamis with 155 millimeter guns.
Yeah, that's a very interesting historical fact. I like when we connect history to the game, because in the end we're all, I assume, history nerds, because why else would you be playing a game that's has a bunch of really cool ships in it, right?
Vanessa, this is the first one you said you played. What were your thoughts about the Duguay and its 155 millimeter guns?
Well, I thought it was a pretty decent cruiser. At that tier, you're right. You're going to see a lot of people who are just kind of getting into the game, and so you see a lot of broadsides, and they get punished for it. That cruiser with those 150s really hurt, though there was quite a few times where, you're just, wow, I thought I landed that shot perfectly, and no Citadel. But even then, was still doing really, really good damage. So I felt the speed, the torpedoes were, pretty decent, and the power of those guns made it a really fun cruiser.
Clyde, did you have any thoughts about the Duguay before we move on to the two mid-tier ships?
To be honest, I haven't looked too much into the mid to lower tier cruisers. I've only been particularly interested in the tier 6 and above, so
fair enough.
I need to look more into these ones.
They're a lot of fun. They really are, especially the tier 3, like we were talking about. But so the tier 5 and the tier 6, these ships really reminded me of the Königsberg and the Nürnberg from the German line. Just the way that they're set up, the gun arrangement and kind of the guns and gun performance and things like that. Kami, the Emile Bertin, I've heard a lot of people really like that ship, and it's the last ship of the line that doesn't get the speed boost, which I know you don't like. But what are your thoughts? Did you play her with the inertial fuse for HE shells?
I did not. I didn't play any of them with the inertial fuse. I played them all the way, all with demo. But the Emile, the 5 and the 6 I felt were almost the same ship. I didn't really feel very much difference between the two. I don't know if that's what you guys experienced, but
like I said, they feel like I never felt like there was a whole lot of difference between the Königsberg and the Nürnberg, but I always felt like the Nürnberg was a little harder to play because it was a tier 6. I didn't feel a whole lot of difference between the Emile and the La Garçonnière. In the tier 6 was harder to play because of the matchmaking it got. Vanessa, did you kind of have the same experience?
Actually, I did. I really feel that both the tier 5 and tier 6 are very, very similar. I think, really only the difference is with the speed boost module, because, the difference, they've got the same torpedoes. The guns feel really, similar to me. So yeah, really just difference in the speed boost module.
We need to shorten the tier 6's name to something I can pronounce.
Call it Lagal, something like that. But I found them to be great mid-tier ships. I found them to be really good trainers for the farther that you went up the line. They really were the ships that started to train you into thinking, okay, I need to stay on the outside of a flank. I need to use my HE effectively. I don't want to be the person taking the hits. That's what I thought that those ships were really good at training me for when I was going to get higher up in the ship line.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but the tier 6 is the last one with the 152s, correct?
That's correct. So as soon as you get to the tier 7, which the Algerie, which we'll talk about in a minute, you're up to 203s.
The algae? Did I say that correctly? The algae?
It's Algerie.
So not algae. It's not on the bottom
Not
of the
algae.
swim.
No, it's
not on the bottom of the
not
swimming
on the
pool.
swimming pool.
Okay.
No, sorry. Clyde, you said that you were sort of interested in the tier 6 starting. Did you kind of take a look at the Garçonnière or no?
I've seen a little bit on it, comparing that to my favorite cruise on that tier, which is the Cleveland. But you guys say it's play like the Nuremberg, was it?
Yeah, it's got its guns. It's got 2 turrets in the front instead of 2 turrets in the back. But there are 3 triple turrets. I went 1-on-1 with several Clevelands in the tier 6, and I felt like the tier 6 held up really, really well against the Cleveland, mostly because I found it to be relatively high speed and maneuverable, that if I stayed far enough away, the Cleveland had a really hard time hitting me with its kind of space guns.
How's the Citadel armor on the side? Is it low or is it high in the water?
It's exposed. It's definitely more exposed than a Cleveland, but you have no reason that you have to give your broadside to anything, really. Kami, did you play against any Clevelands in the tier 6, tier 5, tier 6?
Oh, plenty of Clevelands. Clevelands were easy food. They just can't. They just, like you said, they can't hit you. That's the biggest thing with the Cleveland. When you get out towards max ranges of Cleveland, the shells take forever to get to you. And as long as you're maneuvering and paying attention, you'll win a gunfight with the Cleveland.
Yeah, I had that same experience. I mean, it had a good intermediate range. Clevelands weren't hitting you, and there really was no reason to go broadside because you have so many guns forward facing that you could just zip along and shoot. And if you are having to play the be chased game and people were chasing you, the angles were not too bad to just kind of zigzag and get some shots off. And go from there, especially once you get the speed boost module. It really does help.
See, this is kind of where we get into a disagreement. Vanessa and I really like the speed boost module on these ships. I like that flavor. I know, Kami, that you felt like it was completely useless.
I don't think it's completely useless, but I think it's gimmicky. Go ahead, Clyde.
Depends on what you want to use it for. For DD hunting, I would say it's good. Like, what's the top speed of that thing? 35? No. With the speed boost, it's probably around 35, isn't it? So hunting down DDs with it does decent hydro. So shifting position on the map is always nice as well.
It's about 35, 36 knots with the speed boost.
Yeah,
especially with the 15%
speed
speed boost that it gets instead for the French ships.
Oh yeah, that was the buff, right? That on reload.
I mean, everyone that's played with me or watches the stream or whatnot knows that I like utility. In the division or on the team, whether it be radar or good hydro or, something of that matter. And I'm not saying the speed boost won't have its uses. It'll help you get back to, if say you're getting capped out, you can get back to the cap quicker. Or, Clyde said, you can chase down destroyers. But I mean, honestly, if you're in a cruiser chasing down a destroyer without radar, sometimes it becomes a futile task. But but I just find it to be less useful than some of the other, consumables in the game. But there will definitely be uses where, you can hit that speed boost, get going, and, get to a position that you want to get to before other ships get there. Or, I mean, they'll definitely be good uses for it, but I'm just not a huge fan of it.
I found it to be more useful on the higher tier ships, but we'll kind of get into that as well. So tier 5, tier 6, I think the consensus is they're solid ships, but they're not kind of represent. They're kind of a subset of the line. Is kind of what I felt.
Yeah, they're definitely playable, and they're definitely be rewarding, but they feel kind of like where they are on the tech tree. I think they're just kind of in the middle of the line, and they're just they're like their own two ships, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and then after that you get the Algerie, which is it's pretty much unique in the line as far as in terms of gameplay. I had a really hard time with the Algerie, and I'm curious as to what you guys had experience wise with it. I felt it played a lot like the York. I mean, it's got the same super firing fore and aft turrets, ABXY, 2 guns per turret, 8. So you've got 8 guns. I mean, I had a really hard time with it. Like, it didn't feel very good to me to play. Kami or Vanessa, did you guys have some thoughts on the Algerie, or did you like it, dislike it?
Yeah, the shells seem to travel for a long time. It has really good range, but I think the really good range is offset by how long it takes the shells to get there. I wasn't a big fan of the tier 7, and I can honestly tell you, I got dev struck a couple times in it, angled on, bow on, which
that was my problem with it too. I was in smoke and somebody caught a glimpse of me right before I went into it, and I just got smacked, and I was like, well, that sucks. And that was a problem I didn't really have at the tier 8, tier 9, tier 10s.
Yeah, the 7 felt really squishy, and it felt kind of out of place, because we'll get to my favorite ship of the line next, but the 7 just felt like, I don't know, it just wasn't comfortable. And like you said, it kind of did play like a York. You shoot from long range, and hopefully you hit something with those shells.
Yeah, I had rather a similar rough experience with it, as there were multiple times that I would be, pretty bow on, a little bit of angle, and then all of a sudden take a front citadel from considerable distance. And I'm like, wow, you could take damage really quickly with that ship. So you had to become extra careful, really be cognizant of your surroundings and be aware of, who's shooting at you. I know I actually started taking the incoming fire alert in addition to how many people are targeting you, just because some of those ships, like, you can't take any damage, or at least was part of my experience. So, yeah, take that for what you will.
Fair enough. Well, Kami, why don't you tell us a little bit about your favorite ship of the line, the Charles Martel?
The Charles Martel is awesome. I actually am doing a video on this ship. I was working on it last night. It just feels like a tier 8 cruiser, and I just, the look of it is very unique. I love the big superstructure and I call it the goofy looking funnel, but it's just a really good ship. The HE damage is great. The torpedoes surprise people. The AA, if you spec completely for AA and have, defensive fire, you'll chew through planes. I mean, I was chewing through Saipan planes yesterday. I just love the ship overall. It has the right combination of firepower, speed. Just, it's an all around good ship, and it's my favorite. And I've really stayed away from playing tier 8 a lot because you always seem to get up tier. But I would play this ship, and the grind on this ship is not going to be a grind. It's just going to be fun, and it'll be a ship that I keep. So I highly recommend when these ships come out, and you keep the tier 8.
So how do you compare it to like the New Orleans and the Mogami / Atago in terms of tier 8 cruisers?
Okay, so if I had to rank this ship within the tier 8 cruisers that are in the game, I still think the Atago is up there, just because that ship is honestly overpowered. But we won't get into that.
Well, it's the only tier 8 with a heal, which just kind of puts it in a class of its own. Like you can't even compare the Atago to the other ones in some ways, if that makes sense.
Yeah, if I had to go with the ships that are just in the lines, I think the Charles Martel is head and shoulders above the Hipper. The New Orleans, I want to think the New Orleans, even with more buffs, it'll always just be an average ship. The Mogami is, I know Vanessa loves it. I haven't played the Mogami in a long time. I might play it again when it gets its buff, but I just think the Charles Martel, the AP on the Charles Martel is fantastic. I 38K'd a Neptune yesterday with AP at 8 kilometers broadside. I mean, that is...
I did that with the St. Louis. But we'll get to that in a minute.
It's ridiculous, and the thing that I love about the AP, it flies, it has a great trajectory, and it has decent velocity, it works when you need to shoot AP out of that ship. Now, the one thing I will tell you about the Charles Martel is it is a little bit squishy. I was getting hit by an Edinburgh yesterday for 2 or 3K, and I was stern to them. So it is squishy, but you get, and the speed boost actually helped me reposition pretty well. So that's what I use the speed boost for. I don't use it for chasing other ships. I just use it for getting around the map. But the Charles Martel is an excellent ship, and definitely a keeper for me anyway.
One of the things I found about the speed boost is that it actually makes you fast enough that it's harder for people to hit you. Like, people would underestimate how fast I was going in those ships and miss me to the stern. So
yeah, and that's a good point. And I know some people, myself included, look at smokestacks. I don't know if, Clyde, I don't know if you do this, or Kalorn or Vanessa. You look at smokestacks on ships, and you can kind of tell, how fast they're going. And with the speed boost enabled, it really does throw off your aim. There were plenty of times that I saw, people testing the ship, or people, CCs or whatever, using them, and you would underestimate how fast they're going. And that is an advantage of the speed boost. You can get up there, and people will underlead you.
Yeah, it's like the Kaba and the rest of the fast Russian DDs.
Yeah, that's actually a really good comparison, Clyde. I mean, it's really... It's
you
really
notice
surprising.
how the shell's landing behind you.
Yeah.
Every time they're gonna lead too little on you, because they are used to shooting at the DD at 35 to 40 knots, not 40 to 50 knots.
Vanessa, what did you think of the Charles Martel before we move on to the St. Louis?
Very good ship. As soon as I took it out of port, I was having success in it. And it was really one of the first French ships that I could get in there and, was kind of having some fun with it. Still trying to really learn the line, and it's not really suited for my playstyle. But this ship was the first one that was like, okay, I'm having some fun in it. It had the right combination of just utility and what it was bringing to the match. And it is enjoyable. And I totally agree. I would use, especially at tier 9s and 10, use the speed boost when, everyone's kind of shooting at you. Either maybe like when you're in the turn and you got to start, running away, and you hit that speed boost, and it really throws people off. So it's cool. It's a cool little feature. Yeah, it might be a little situational, but it is something nice to have on those cruisers.
Yeah, I actually had a Gneisenau shooting at me yesterday from about 15, and he fired 5 or 6 times, and shells didn't even come close. It's definitely has, like I said, it definitely has its uses, but I just feel it's a little bit gimmicky. But the more and more you play with them, the more and more you'll find good uses for them, and the ability to figure out which times to pop it. And another thing that I wanted to share. If you guys have the speed boost module, I think it makes the speed boost last for 3 minutes.
Yeah, and it's almost back. It's like if you use the upgraded speed boost, it's only like a 30-second timer before you can use again, or something stupidly short.
So I actually had that on. I actually had that on the Charles Martel, and I'm actually going to cover all that in my video. But yeah, if you use the Speed Boost module, because I think the Speed Boost module actually is in like the module slot where there's like damage control, propulsion, and steering. So honestly, on cruisers, I don't take those. So I mean, the Speed Boost module is actually quite effective.
Yeah, I really wanted to try that, but I didn't have any of them on my press account, and I didn't have the ships on my main account, so I didn't get to. But yeah, that's one of the things I definitely I'm looking forward to your video, see kind of how that worked out for you, Kami, so that I can do that when I get the ships of the actual line. So let's move on to the Tier 9 real quick. The St. Louis, excuse me, I said St. Louis earlier, but it's the St. Louis since it's French. You can actually get to play this on the PTS if you complete a series of actions. It's basically play games in the various lines. So if you want to test the St. Louis, the Tier 9 French cruiser, you can do so on the PTS, and you can look into that on the World of Warships website. However, I love this ship. I found the St. Louis to be like the pinnacle of the French CA line. I loved the 8.8 second reload with the reload module. I loved the way that the ship dodged around. Its ruddership felt very good. The speed felt very good. You've got the 9-kilometer torps that can kind of harass people and like when they don't expect them. I just found this to be the perfect package of a ship. And I found it even more so than the Charles Martel, which I did find to be a good ship. But the St. Louis kind of just made everything better. And I don't know. I honestly believe that she is the best Tier 9 ship in the game, or the best Tier 9 cruiser in the game. I liked her that much.
Whoa, did you say something bad about the Chuck?
No, I'm just saying that this is the evolution of the Chuck to something better.
Oh, okay. I agree. But you say it's the best Tier 9, so you like it more than the Baltimore?
I wrecked Baltimore's in the St. Louis, Kami. I mean, I went up against multiple Baltimores in the St. Louis, and every single time they could not kill me, and I just wrecked them.
Huh. Maybe I didn't get to shoot it. Maybe I didn't get to fight very many Baltimores. But I do like the 9. And like you said, the 9 is definitely the evolution of the Chuck. Sorry, the Charles Martel. But the AA on that ship is ridiculous. If it's spec'd for it, I was looking at the numbers and it's like, wow, it just, again, it's just a really good ship, and it feels like to me, it feels like that's where the line ends.
Yeah. I mean, I had no problem with the St. Louis in Tier 10 battles. No problem at all. So it was just felt like the most comfortable ship to play. Now, Clyde, you were talking about that you're on Team Rune. What are your thoughts about the Rune, and why do you think that? What do you think about it would be better than the St. Louis?
For me, for the Rune, it's mainly the armor and insanely good hydro and very decent AA, and it's very good at kiting other ships with its 2 rare super firing guns. But I haven't checked out the 10-9 myself yet, so I guess I have to wait and see how that turns out. But at this moment, the Rune is by far my favorite 10-9.
Well, I know that Vanessa agrees with you about the Rune, so maybe Vanessa can give you an idea of what she did or didn't like about the St. Louis in comparison to the Rune.
I just have to disagree. I mean, my experience was different from you guys, and I don't know. I mean, I put quite a few games in both the St. Louis and the Henri IV, and I don't know. Maybe it's my play style. I mean, I was doing okay. I was doing okay damage. Occasionally, sinking a few people, and not necessarily getting killed myself. But I don't know if the gameplay was something that I was really liking, or I'm not having the same experience that you two are having. So that being said, I went and I tested, I did some comparisons between it and Baltimore, which I think is pretty analogous too. And I do feel it's better than Baltimore. And as far as, say, St. Louis versus Baltimore, yes, I was winning those battles, but I don't know. I have to disagree. it doesn't seem for me, but I'm glad it's working for other people.
So a couple of things that I wanted to note about it. The reason that one of the reasons I found it so good is because of the way that the modules are set up, and the basic range of the St. Louis was long enough that you don't need to take the range module. I feel like the Baltimore is locked into taking that range module. So taking the reload module is not an option on the Baltimore, but it is on the St. Louis. And with the St. Louis with the reload module, just that's what wrecked the Baltimores I played against.
Yeah, that is a good point. Yeah, that's a good point about the reload module. What is the range? Is it on the St. Louis, Kalorn?
The range is 18.3 kilometers, which I found to be perfectly adequate on the St. Louis.
Yeah, isn't that basically what the Baltimore's range is with the range module?
I believe it's pretty close to that. Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous. I mean, I found that the Baltimore was heavier armored than the St. Louis, but the St. Louis it could pump out the HE and just hit it in the superstructure again and again and again, and then harass it with torpedoes. I don't think I ever even fired AP at a Baltimore, but I never had to.
Now, did you have any experience firing AP? I really didn't fire much AP except for at cruisers that were broadside. But I'm wondering how the AP does against battleships. Did you fire at any Iowas or?
I had a couple of volleys that I lofted into superstructure, and they did fine. I mean, it's cruiser AP against superstructures, so that did okay. But mainly I stuck to the HE. The AP on the French ships really, really hurts the Royal Navy light cruisers. I mean, one of the things I wanted to say is that the French cruisers feel like a counter to the Royal Navy cruiser, but they're not a hard counter because they can't do it alone. If the Royal Navy cruiser is in smoke and you are not very good at putting your shots into the smoke, blind, then you're going to have a hard time. But if they had radar for some reason, they would be a straight up hard counter to Royal Navy cruisers because they are just brutal against them. I did 30,000 plus damage to multiple Edinburghs and Neptunes with these ships.
I do agree with that, though. If I saw a British cruiser, I was APing that, and it was very hurtful to them. So that was something that I was experiencing.
And another thing that I experienced with the ships that had the 8-inch guns, it seems like the pin angles and the what's the word I'm looking for?
AP normalization?
Yes, the AP normalization was better than like the German cruisers. I felt anyway.
It felt good, but it didn't felt like American AP. That's the only thing I could say.
Yeah. And Clyde does have a good point. The Balti does have better concealment, and I do notice that these ships do have a the concealment is a little bit high, and I felt that they take a pretty good amount of HE damage. I don't know, Vanessa and you, Kalorn, think, but I felt like they did take a pretty good amount of HE damage.
That's my main concern about the new cruiser line. I really like concealment cruisers, and the concealment is not the best. It's like the Russian cruisers. Some of them, at least, like Donskaya and Moskva. I'm not sure about the T10, but T9, compare that to the Baltic with 9.8, I think, with Concealment Expert. I think it's below 10 at least.
Yeah, Baltimore, 9.8.
Yeah, that's why I really like the Baltimore. I'm probably one of the few who actually likes that ship.
I know Kami likes it, but most of the French ships are in that 11 to 12 kilometer range. As far as detection range. And I tried to play them early on, like a combination of USN and IJN ships, and it didn't really work. Like the USN ships in particular, you feel like you want to be a little closer up with them. But that's just not the case with the French ships. I found them to be flanking, harassing HE spammers. That was the way the entire line from the tier basically 5 up, that's how I played it, and that was how I was. That's the way I felt that was the most successful way to play those ships, including the Henri IV. Like the Henri IV can sit at 17 to 18 to 19 kilometers and drop volleys of HE fire onto people's decks and start multiple fires in one volley. So, but the St. Louis was the same way. It's you sit at the upper 10% of your range and just rock people with HE, and if they shoot at you, you dodge. That because you really don't want to get hit. I mean, I took a lot of damage in these ships, even in these ones that I really liked. But you just have to learn not to get hit. That was what I thought that it made me a better cruiser player overall.
That is definitely the key. And you definitely do not want to get hit in these ships. But as far as taking HE damage, I wasn't on fire much with these ships. I noticed very rarely that I was getting set on fire when people were shooting HE back at me. So, yeah, you take a lot of damage, but I don't know if that was your experience. But I didn't notice a lot of fire being put on me.
I didn't either, but I usually don't on cruisers anyway because they have a relatively short cooldown. But moving on to the tier 10, because we're getting a little up there on time, the Henri IV, I enjoyed playing it this weekend, even with the 17.1 second base reload, which was like 15.1, I think, when you put the reload module on it. I enjoyed playing that ship in that configuration. It wasn't the most comfortable ship to play, but I enjoyed playing it. And on the PTS, they've buffed the base reload rate on the Henri from 17.1 seconds to 12.3 seconds. So with the reload module, you're looking at a 10.8 second reload with the guns that have the highest fire chance at tier 10. Done. I'm sold on that ship right, and I haven't even gotten a chance to play it in its buffed state. I know that you were a little more iffy on it, Kami.
The Grand Baguette, yeah. I don't play. Everyone knows I don't play the PTS, and I haven't, and I won't. But with the buff to the reload, I mean that's gonna be pretty good. I just feel like the ship. Okay, so there's a lot of comparisons that people make between the Henri and the Moskva because they're both they both look like. To me, they feel like battle cruisers. I mean, that's how I kind of play them. But the one thing that I do like about the Henri is it has torpedoes. And I've always said with the Moskva, the weakness of the Moskva is close in battles. I mean, I wouldn't care if the Moskva had the old Kiev torps, the 4-kilometer ones, but the one thing about the Henri that I really love is that it has torpedo. That is a big plus to me because when you start closing in and a battleship's coming at you or whatnot, you get torpedoes, and that is a huge amount of damage if you aim them correctly. The guns, I was a little underwhelmed shooting at cruisers with the AP. Maybe they were at a funky angle or not, but I was a little bit underwhelmed. But the HE is great. There were countless times double fires, and that's going to be a pain because you can sit at such a long range, and if you can reliably set fires on battleships, and Color, you know this as well as I do, the one thing that is the most annoying thing to a battleship player is getting hit by a cruiser that you can't reliably hit back.
See, I think that the comparisons between the Henri and the Moskva are you're looking at it superficially. Yes, they look very similar in the way that their guns are. They've got bigger than 203 millimeter guns, but they don't play the same. I tried to play the Henri like I play a Moskva, and it doesn't work. It's too soft. But if you compare the Henri to the way you play a Zhao, if you own a Zhao, you will love the way that the Henri plays because it's the same idea. You sit at close to maximum range. You dodge around when they try and shoot at you. The armor is very troll with a spaced armor. I mean, I took big hits sometimes, but more often than not, I had enough time to angle my armor and it was like 1,000 or 2,000 damage. And that was it, in the Henri. Now, so if you play it like a Zhao, I mean, think about it. The Zhao has a base 19% fire chance on 12 guns with a 12-second reload. and it has to take the range module because you cannot not take it. So it doesn't have a choice to get its reload time down. The Henri is going to have a 10.8 second reload and a 19.1 kilometer range if you take the reload module. And it's going to have a 22% base fire chance on it. So even if you take inertial fuse for HE, which we'll talk about why you want to do that in just a second, and you take demolition expert, you're still looking at a 21 to 23% fire chance with flags and demo expert and all that stuff. It is brutal.
So, quick question. You said that you used the inertial fuse. I didn't. And so, from what you were telling me when we talked earlier, you had great success with it. Do you want to elaborate a little bit and tell people?
Yeah, I do. And I actually want to give a quick shout out to a guy on Reddit, Sniper69, because he put an excellent post up about why I'd heard of that you should use it. And then he put the numbers out that kind of confirmed it for me. But the idea is that because you have 240 millimeter guns, if you have your normal penetration with 240 millimeter guns in HE is 40 millimeters of armor. If you have inertial fuse for HE on 240 millimeter guns, you can penetrate up to 52 millimeters of armor with HE. So this is where things get crazy, because now you've got the deck armor of the Tirpitz and the Bismarck. You've got the deck armor of the Kurfürst. You've got the deck armor of the Frederick. You've got the fore and aft armor of the Yamato that you couldn't penetrate before. The side armor plating of the Khabarovsk. The side and deck armor of the Moskva. The middle deck of the Edinburgh, and the side and rear faces of the turrets on the German or the high tier Royal Navy cruisers. Basically, you can lob your shells, set 2 fires, and do 4,000 to 5,000 damage on battleships at 18 to 19 kilometers with the Henri. That's like my idea of a dream.
What about $1 million?
Fair enough. Vanessa?
I was experiencing similar damage because I set mine up FHE as well, and was reliably doing some good sets of damage there. I do kind of see the comparison between it and Zao. I think the biggest difference, though, is the ballistics and the flight time. With Henri, they get really floaty at that max range. So at least for me, you really had to adjust, especially going from, playing so much with Duca d'Aosta and then learning the flight times and ballistics with the French cruisers is a bit of an adjustment.
One thing I do worry about when you compare it to the Zao, Clyde and I have been talking about this in the chat, but the Zao is a ship that is not a team player. The Zao is a damage farming ship. And the one thing I can say is if you play it like a Zao and you're sitting in the back farming your damage, the game could be over before you have a major impact. Just a heads up. I mean, maybe I see it incorrectly that way, but I can't tell you how many games I've seen where, the game at the deciding moment, the Zao is still sitting all the way in the back, not helping the team. So don't be that guy. Know when to engage and know when to move it up in the battle and have an impact. Or you're gonna, you might end up with 130,000 damage, but you're gonna end up with a loss, and everyone knows the W is more important.
Yeah, same goes for Moskva though. It's always those two guys sitting at the end of the match, full HP at max range. I can understand Moskva though, but Zao is really good at close range. I don't get why people need to go for the max range thing. Instead of reload, go close in, use the concealment, and help out the team at the caps. So I'm a bit worried about this Tet 10 because it doesn't look like it's going to suit my playstyle, which is up close to the caps. I'm helping out with torpedoes, hydro, radar, whatever.
So one of the things, I played this on Sunday, Kami, I played the Henri in our scrimmages and our internal ones, and I found that if you kind of go close in with it, if you try and sit in the smoke with the battleships, you're going to be in trouble. But if you sit behind if you're a second line cruiser I'm not talking about sitting at max range. I'm talking about sitting at second line. So you've got your battleships and your destroyers that are kind of going in front of you. And if you sit just behind them and you lob your shells over those ships, you can support your team and be in the right place and farm the damage with the guns in the right way. The other thing about the Henri is that with the speed boost on, it does 42 knots. Yeah, you have to be going in a straight line, but you can flex from one side of the map all the way to the other side and make a difference. And it's really the only tier 10 that can do that, in my opinion, of cruiser wise.
Yeah, and there you go. Again, that's where the speed boost, I think, is going to play a good, it's going to play well, is being able to flex and repositioning yourself to maybe blunt a push or, help some teammates out on the other side of the map. And that's where I find the speed boost to be very useful. But it'll be interesting to see how the Henri plays with the reload buff, because I mean, what's the Moskva? The Moskva's like 10 seconds, right? With it set up that way.
The Moskva is, I think, 7 point something with the reload module on, so it's still going to fire faster. But that's the other thing is the Moskva. I did some long range duels with the Moskva in the Henri, and the Moskva did not come off well.
And you were using inertial fuse, right?
And I was using inertial fuse because I was able to drop the HE right on its decks.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to try that. That's actually very interesting. I'll have to look into that and give that a shot.
Yeah, that was the one good thing I would say is with FHE, pretty much almost every salvo was guaranteed 4, 5, 6K. If you're really lucky, damage. If you're hitting with those shells, and you're still setting fire if you take Demo Expert. So it's not bad at all as far as doing the damage. You just got to really be careful with all that incoming fire on you, because you will gain aggro quick and people will be shooting at you.
Yeah. So, Clyde, I'm kind of curious. After talking with us here today, did we kind of whet your appetite about the French cruisers, or did we kind of confirm that you didn't want to play them?
Most of the cruisers seems interesting, though. And I really like having more interesting ships in the game, so it mixes the matches up a bit more. People start to play cruisers more. That's always fun when a new nation gets introduced. It means less BBs because people want to play the new cruiser line, so it will promote more cruiser gameplay, which I really like, since the amount of battleships is too high at the moment. And there's only like a couple of ships I don't find interesting, like the tier 10 one. It plays somewhat like the Moskva, which is not my playstyle. And I haven't really checked out the lower tiers one, but the tier 6 to 8 at least seems interesting. I need to look further into the tier 9.
Yeah, I highly recommend the 9. The 9 is just, it's really jack of all tradesy. I really like that. So, anyway, Kami, can you just give us your overall impression of the line and whether or not we would recommend it and to whom you would recommend it?
My overall impression of the line is it's the tier 1 is poop, but after that it goes up, it goes uphill very, very well. You reach the peak, I think, at the 9 and then maybe come back down at the 10 a little bit. But like I had said, I haven't tried the way you guys have it built, so that might change my opinion a little bit. And the reload buff is probably going to help me, figure it out as well. But overall, the line's great. If you like cruiser play, if you like, history, if you like French ships, I personally don't know a lot about French ships. I know more about the battleships and the cruisers, but the ships are great. I mean, they're the French line. So if you're like me and you're at the point where you have a lot of the ships in the game, every new line that comes out is definitely going to be streamed, going to be played, going to be I would recommend them. I don't think there's really, from about the 2 to the 9, I don't think there's really any weakness. Maybe the 7 is a little bit weak, but overall, I mean, you guys will have a lot of fun playing these, and they're all good except for the one. The one's not very good. Poor Bougainville.
To be fair, if there has to be a ship in a line that's not very good, the one is a good one for it to be.
That is true. Like we said earlier, how many games you're actually going to play in it? One game, 2 games, maybe.
Vanessa, could you just give us your overall impression of the line?
Well, for me personally, I'm still struggling with the line. So I have to disagree. If you are an aggressive player, if you are someone who likes to get close with their cruisers, really support, really bring some utility, if you really enjoy, getting that surprise torpedo attack, contesting caps and hunting destroyers, these cruisers may not be for you. That being said, you can definitely have fun in these cruisers, and it really depends on your play style. It just, for me, I'm not really enjoying them, so I'm not going to recommend them just based on my aggressive play style. But, to each their own. I'm sure there's many people who will play lines just because they have all the ships already, and they need something new to try. So if you definitely want to expand your knowledge and your forte in this game, this is definitely a cruiser line to try and play.
For myself, I would recommend them. I find them to be, especially if you enjoy the play style of kind of the IJN fire spammers, they play kind of similar to that with the turrets and stuff from the USN. I had a lot of fun with this line. I really did. I was kind of went into it with kind of low expectations because there had been a lot of stuff on YouTube and whatnot saying that the ships had a huge problem. But man, every game I was in, I just had a blast. Even though I got fired at a lot because I was in a new ship, I still had a really good time with them, and I look forward to playing them, especially in random matches and things like that. So, well, with that,
I will add.
Go ahead.
I will add one thing. If the next ranked battle season is Tier 8, I do believe that Charles Martel will be pretty decent in that, just because of the playstyle of ranked. So that might be a cruiser that you see more in ranked battle if the next ranked season is Tier 8.
I do know someone who will be playing it if it is Tier 8.
I bet he's on this podcast too.
Maybe.
Clyde, well, we wanted to thank you for coming on the show today. We realized that we talked a lot about the French ships, but it's great to have you on the show. We had a really good time with you in the NAEU event about a month ago. So
yeah, it was fun. Thanks for inviting me, guys.
Oh, absolutely. Well, we'll definitely have you back on the show again soon for sure.
And I got to sync you.
Yeah, you did. Bastard. I won't forget it.
NA versus EU rivalries, the real ones.
That was for talking crap about the Fuso. That was a preemptive one.
Okay. I'll remember it.
Clyde, do you want to give a quick shout out to your Twitch and Twitter accounts?
Yeah, you can hit me up at Clyde Monkey on Twitch, and same goes for Twitter. Well, Clyde Poo, Clyde Monkey, whatever. Best average captain out there, they say. So yeah, hit me up there. I stream almost every day, and it's my main game, so play almost only warships these days. So yeah.
Also, listeners, I just wanted to remind everyone that the ships that we talked about are still in testing, and the statistics, all the performances, everything that we have talked about on the show are subject to change and very well could change by the time you get them in port. So do please be aware that what we have been talking about is all considered a work in progress.
Thank you, Vanessa. I should have said that at the top end. Vanessa, I believe you had something quick to announce about our CC status before we close that up.
Yes, definitely. And again, I just want to really thank the listeners and supporters. We, on the podcast here, feel incredibly just the great honor and privilege and wonderful opportunity that it is to promote World of Warships, a game that we love, not only a game that we love, but a community that we really love and enjoy playing with. We are extremely grateful, and it is all because of you, the listeners. And we want you to know that each and every one of us here at the podcast, just heartfelt, great opportunity and privilege to represent you, and just thank you.
Well said, Vanessa. I think that both Kami and I feel the same way. So, Well, that's it for this week, folks. As always, follow us on Facebook and Twitter for updates between podcasts. We, of course, want to thank our amazing Patreon backers. If you're interested in supporting us, please consider becoming a Patreon backer yourself, and you'll be entered in monthly drawings for cool Warship swag like t-shirts, pins, and pillows. Sorry, no torpedoes yet, guys. We're still working on that. The next drawing will be this weekend, the 4/15, and we'll get some new stuff out. Take care, and we will see you guys next week.